G'day, my name's John Dowd. I'm going to be your host of the Seamanship for Kayakers video. Many of you, when you think about learning about sea kayaking, you think of rolls, you think of paddle technique, you think of rescues. We're going to show you those things, but we're also going to show you the other side of sea kayaking. That is the part of it that deals with navigation, weather, oceanography, and the judgment that goes along to make the right decisions using all of those elements that you've learned about. The first in our series is going to be a video that deals with all of these subjects, a general introduction. And to do this, we'd like to follow Tina and Dag as they take a group of beginners along the coast.
Right, Tina, what I was thinking we could do is we could start here, and probably in about 4 hours we could make it up into Sligo Bay, which is up here, and we could have lunch there. What do you think?
I think that sounds great, Dag, but this is a bit of a long paddle, 4 hours. We might need a break somewhere around here. Like maybe here, looks like a nice place we could land. Because people want to stretch their legs and maybe have a snack.
Sure, that's fine. We could do that. No problem. And then after lunch, we'd head off through this narrows here. And by that time, the current would be in our favor.
Oh, that's good. That'll be pushing us then over here. But then what happens when we get to this passage?
Well, on this passage, we're going to have the current against us. So what we'll be doing here is hopping from eddy to eddy and then making our way into Seahorse Cove, and I think we could camp there.
That sounds good. If we camp here, then we could have an early start tomorrow morning before we head out to the open coast. That way we can beat the winds in the morning.
Great. Yeah, that's the plan. Good.
Okay, let's do that then.
Sure.
Well, sea kayaking looks easy, but it isn't. In order to do a safe trip on the sea, you need to have a plan. This plan should cover all of the relevant seamanship skills and take into consideration all of the strengths and weaknesses of the individuals in your group. Key to this plan is to have a chart. Now my chart here has been cut into squares and it has been waterproofed. Originally, it looked like this. A marine chart is just a map of the sea and the land that can be seen from the water. I find charts incredibly exciting things, and I'll happily put them up all over the wall in my office. If you're planning a trip, you can see where the bays are that you're going to want to visit. You can see the anchorages, find out where the cliffs are, a little bit of kelp down here. You can find the deep water and your shallow water. You see here is the intertidal zone, that's the green, where the dotted line is chart datum. And that's where all of these measurements are taken from, the chart datum line. You'll be able to plan your route, see the channels you're going to go to. And up along the coast here, you'll notice this shore is very steep too. You can tell that because of the closeness of the lines. This would be dangerous in a westerly wind. Be an unpleasant lee shore. You can make a crossing here, go across to this little sandy bay. It's exposed to the southerly, but really protected in northwesterly wind. Not everybody uses a chart, especially these guys. They are our motley crew.
I don't care where we go. I don't care.
They're here to show us the pitfalls. They were lucky that time. There was no one walking beside the road. There were no other cars. The important thing when you're tying on the boats is to make sure that they're well secured amidships and at either end, and that you've got a good solid roof rack.
Okay, well the weather report's pretty good, Tina.
Oh, how does it sound?
Well, it looks like we were going to get a little bit of wind and cloudy this morning and then around lunchtime should clear up. Should be sunny.
Oh, sounds like it'll be a great day for paddling.
Yeah, I think so.
You see that plane over there? It's required to do a pre-flight check.
Ailerons, controls, free and clear.
It's not a requirement for us,
Mixture,
but it's good
and
sound practice. So
coloring.
let's flip the kayak over and have a look at the hull. Start with the bow and check for obvious damage, such as cracks. Check the stern for wear, because some people drag their boats.
Soft skin folding kayaks should be checked inside beneath the stringers as well to make sure no stones are rubbing their way through
If you start with the bow, then you'll do it the same every time. Check the toggles for chafe. Just make sure everything is secured properly. When you get to the forward hatch, just check the bulkhead in here, have a look. You just want to push it and see if it moves, right? Make sure there's a soft cover. Some people store the cover inside the kayak, and you'll need to make sure that you place it around the coaming after you've put your gear in it. And when you do that, leave the tab out and make sure the hard cover is secured tightly. Okay, and then you continue your check, the bungee cords. Make sure none of these are cracked. Move down towards the cockpit, check the coaming. While you're here, check the back bulkhead. Again, you're looking to make sure that it doesn't move. It's really important that there's no leaks, otherwise water's going to get into your dry storage compartments.
Adequate buoyancy is critical in a sea kayak, whether it is sealed compartments like this hard shell, or inflatable sponsons and sea socks, as we have in folding kayaks and some doubles. You'll understand why when you try to re-enter your kayak from the water.
Really tightly. That way it prevents water from getting inside the boat, but you might need some assistance in putting the cover on. Linda, you can. Okay.
A more thorough test for bulkheads is to fill the
Tabs out.
cockpit with water. It's really the only way to be sure that the sealant is still working for you.
More bungees. Okay. No chafe on the toggle. And then check the rudder. This is really important that the rudder is working properly and that these rudder cables here are not frayed. And if they are, you'll need to replace it. Do this safety check the same way every time, make it a habit, and that way you will never miss anything.
I'd like to show you now what's legally required to have along on our boats when we're kayaking. First of all, we've got this PFD. It has to have a whistle. Apart from that, we have a rope, a spare paddle, and a bilge pump, okay? And other equipment that isn't necessarily required, but we will be wearing, is our spray skirt, a set of flares, our paddle float. As a trip leader, I'll have the submersible VHF radio with me as well. We'll be wearing the PFD and the spray skirt, but all the other safety equipment has to be somewhere close by. We'll stow it securely, but make sure it's in a place where we can reach it easily, okay?
If there's a suitable place, such as this smooth dock, it's best to get in your kayak and adjust your foot pedals before launching. You want to have your legs slightly bent so that your thighs are bracing the side of the boat. You adjust the foot pedals so that your feet are even and your legs fit snugly under the thigh braces. Then try moving your feet to operate the rudder. You should be able to move it easily from one side to the other. Make sure the rudder is centered when your feet are even. And then I'm going to put my spray skirt on, which keeps water out of the cockpit. It's easier to start with the back first. Pull the front, leaving the tab out, and then tucking in the sides. And then I just do a quick check to make sure it's tucked in all around the cockpit coaming. And then you want to check to make sure that your spray skirt is going to come off easily, so you can practice by hanging onto the pull tab, pulling forward and up, just like that.
Great. Val, what we'll do here is just take the light things and we'll put them in either end of the boat. And after that, we'll move the boat into the water and put in the heavier items after that, okay?
Okay.
ABC of loading is accessibility, so you can get what you need when you need it, balance so the boat maintains an even keel, and compactness so you can get it all in.
Where's the beer, Don?
Here's some beer. It's gotta go on your boat.
More dunkings occur during launchings and landings than all other causes combined. On the beach, use a paddle braced behind the cockpit for stability. Marinas and harbours are hazardous places for kayaks, which always come off second best in a collision. Here, Tina heads out first and waits for the group to gather around her, while Dag stays behind and helps the others into their boats.
Hotel Romeo Tango, Silver Bay Dispatch. Please be advised, there are kayakers in the east channel of Silver Bay.
Be predictable around traffic by holding a steady course and maintaining a tight pod formation. The pod makes you easier to see.
Roger, sounds good.
Effective paddling technique requires some really specific skills. Now, you can either learn this through experience, or you can do a class with somebody like Dan Lewis. This is what Tina did.
We're going to start off by learning how to paddle forward, and while we're at it, we're going to learn how to stop and to paddle backwards. Let me just show you what that looks like.
Dan's stroke depends on a good posture. Feet firmly placed against the footrests, with his thighs snug beneath the deck, and his hips firmly against the sides of the seat. This also maximizes his ability to balance and control the boat. He uses his torso muscles to provide a power boost to each stroke.
Okay. A couple of things to think about while you're doing this. When you're paddling forward, remember that the top hand pushes forward. That is the most important thing. Top hand pushing forward. Keep your paddle fairly low. You don't want to have it way up above your head like this, or you'll just drip water on yourself. Okay, you want to keep the paddle down about shoulder height for normal cruising. Shoulder height or lower. Pushing with the top hand, and make sure that your top hand does not cross over the center line of the boat. Let me just show you that real quick. Okay, when I'm paddling forward and I'm pushing with the top hand, I want to stop my push at the center line of the boat. If I follow through and push over here, now I'm pulling water in towards the stern, which will turn my kayak, and I don't want to do that. I just want to go straight forwards. When I'm paddling backwards, I'm going to make sure that I'm looking over my shoulder as I do it. If I'm going backwards and I want to stop, a series of quick forward strokes to stop the boat. When you're moving forwards and you want to stop, a series of backward strokes on both sides. Alrighty, let's get you to try that out. Just paddle across the bay and back. Forwards, across, stop the boat, and then back. That's great. Now stop the boat. And then go backwards. Remember to look over your shoulder. That's it. Try looking on both shoulders. Okay. Actually, why don't you back up a little bit more and we'll try something else. Alrighty. The next thing we're going to do is a sweep stroke. A sweep stroke is used to turn the kayak while giving it momentum. Looks like this.
In later videos, we will show how tilting the kayak on its edge will enhance the boat's ability to turn.
I'm just going to give you a couple of pointers before you try that out. With your sweep stroke, remember to keep the paddle down low, reach forward to the bow, and you're going to pull the water away from the boat, out wide in a wide arc, and follow through right to the stern. On a reverse sweep, you're going to plant the paddle at the back of the boat, push away from the boat in a wide arc, as wide as you can reach, and follow through right to the bow. By doing a reverse sweep on one side and a forward on the other, you can actually spin the boat around. Let's give that a try. Just spread out a bit so you won't collide. That looks good, Tina. Keep the whole paddle in the water, the whole blade submerged, just under the surface. The third stroke I'm going to show you today won't turn you, and it won't send you forwards or backwards. It's a stroke that will prevent a capsize, and it's called the low brace. Looks like this. Very important here that you maintain your normal grip on the paddle. Knuckles lined up with the top of the blade. I'm going to bring the paddle in close to my body and down low, and I'm going to roll my knuckles forward so that I present the back of the paddle to the water. I'm going to reach out wide, and then I'm going to slap the water. Now, if I try to pull that flat blade out of the water, I'm doing the unbrace. I can actually flip the boat over. So it's really important here that after the brace, you turn your knuckles to bring the vertical blade back out of the water. That's called a slice. So you're going to do a slap, turn, slice, turn, slap, turn, slice. Usually one brace will be enough to bring you back up if you feel yourself going over. Let's give that a try. Stop your boat first and then try it. Just think of Newton's third law. I want to come up, so I'm going to push straight down. Great. Okay. Let's try something else here. So the last stroke I want to show you today is called the draw stroke. Draw strokes are used for moving the kayak sideways, and it looks like this. It's not the most efficient way to move a kayak around, but it's very handy if you're doing a rescue and you want to pull alongside somebody, or if you're pulling into a dock, or if your friend is eating the last Mars bar on the whole trip and she's sitting 20 feet off to the side. You can simply do a draw stroke and pull yourself right in and get some chocolate. Let's take a look at how that's done. Again, you want to have your normal grip on the paddle, knuckles line up with the top of the blade, and you're going to, first of all, turn your torso and look where you want to go. Then plant the paddle so the shaft is as close to vertical as you can get it. The blade is parallel to the keel, and you pull straight in towards your hips. So remember, the bottom hand is pulling, the top hand is pushing. So this hand here is pushing away. So it's a push-pull action. You want to be very careful to not actually touch the paddle against the side of the kayak, because you can actually tip over. So what you want to do there at the end of the draw is, using your knuckles, turn the paddle and slice the blade away. So it's draw, turn, slice, turn, draw, turn, slice. Underwater, the paddle is going like this. Okay, why don't you give that a try? Just together you can draw to the left and then draw to the right. So remember to turn your torso before you plant. Yep. And draw right beside your hips. Great. Try the other side. Always practice on both sides. I think you're nearly ready for the first annual Vargas Island Draw Marathon. 26 miles sideways. Okay, come on back in. Just one thing to keep in mind. 99% of the time when you're out paddling, you'll be paddling forward. You won't get a chance to practice your bracing, your draws, and your sweeps unless you create that opportunity. What I did when I was learning to kayak, every time I went out paddling, when I got back to the beach at the end of the day, it didn't matter if I was going to tip over, I'd just spend 5 minutes playing around with these basic strokes. Just getting really comfortable sweeping the boat, bracing, and doing draws. That kind of practice will really pay off if you ever find yourself in rough water or having to do a rescue.
This is an East Cardinal buoy. It is part of the international system of aids to navigation, and an explanation can be found in this little book, which is called Chart 1. But of course, it's not a chart at all. If you look inside the book, you'll see the East Cardinal buoy with 2 cones, base to base. Now this indicates deep water to the east of the buoy, which for kayakers is mostly of interest because it tells us where the other vessels will be going, so we can keep out of their way. Aids to navigation are guides, but collision regulations are the law. They apply to kayaks, ferries, sailboats, and supertankers alike. Kayaks must give way to sailboats and deep draft vessels in narrow channels. In this situation, Vessel B maintains course and speed. A keeps out of its way and passes behind it. Right now, it looks like I'm about to be clobbered by this ferry. I'm approaching it from its port side. That means I have to give way. Even if I was approaching from starboard, I would still have to give way because the ferry is in a narrow channel. Personally, I give way to anything that's bigger than me. That said, you still need to know the rules.
Remember, red's for stop, green's for go. If you have trouble remembering, port is red. Don't mix with drinking with the kayaking, however, it doesn't make sense. Keep it for around the campfire at night.
Sea kayak seamanship is made up of many parts, and the paddling skills, the boat handling skills, are really like the 3 R's. That's why in this first video we've stressed them so much. This pie gives an idea of what else you need to learn to kayak safely. There's something else, a depth of knowledge and a safe attitude to risk.
Okay, rudders up.
You may wonder why they've chosen this particular bay for a lunch stop. Well, if you look at the chart, you'll see there's a intertidal zone marked in green here, and there's sand marked on the chart, little s. And Dag's going to be using one of these computer-generated tidal graphs, which will indicate exactly how high the tide is likely to be. These are printed for locations throughout North America for the next 100 years, if you like, planning well in advance. He's going to use the inclinometer on his compass to determine exactly where that tide is going to be when they're ready to leave.
We can take our stuff all the way up to that log over there, because by the time we finish lunch, the water will be that high.
Okay, I have the slings. We need 6 people to carry
This
the double.
method avoids having to unpack the kayak every time you come ashore.
Let me show you the correct way to use a sling. Okay, you want to put the rope behind your back and bend your legs. So when you lift, you're using your legs while you keep your back straight. Okay? You can go on the back, Jim, and get the stern.
If you give me a little bit more slack there.
How's that? Good. Okay, is everybody ready? Ready? Yeah. Okay, on 3.
Other methods of getting above the incoming tide include sliding the boat on kelp or using rollers.
Egon, come sit over here.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Oh, but don't sit on your life jacket.
Oh, all right, thanks. Oh, what a lovely paddle.
Did you like it? That was great, wasn't it?
I enjoyed it very much.
Nice to have a break in the shade.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful out here.
Yeah, great day.
Be fun camping.
As for garbage, there's a simple rule. Pack it in, pack it out. Always do a beach sweep. You'd be amazed at what gets left behind.
Thursday. Seas 1 to 2 meters. Outlook. Winds rising to strong to gale.
Well, it looks like the wind's going to pick up this afternoon. But what's really important is that we get down through the Narrows before the tide changes. Is everybody feeling okay?
My wrist is a little sore.
Well, Egon, I've got a paddle here that I think would really help.
This paddle has an ergonomically designed shaft to reduce stress. Paddles may have blades in the same plane or up to 90 degrees feathered, according to preference. A paddle is as personal as a pair of shoes, and there is a whole range to choose from. You need to find one that suits you, your boat, your partner, and your budget. An ounce of prevention saves a huge amount of pain. Get those hot spots before they become blisters. Hey, Egon will figure it out. Long-term paddlers also have a problem with overuse injuries. I've had one in my shoulders for years. Restricts my sweeps, some of the rolls, but it doesn't stop me enjoying paddling. I can still crank along when I have to.
MV Quinsum, this is Salamander, over.
Salamander, this is MV Quinsum. Please turn to channel 8. Channel 8.
MV Quinsum, we are a group of kayakers to your starboard side. We wish to cross your departure line. Please advise.
Salamander, please hold your position as we are about to depart. Thank you.
Marine radio is a great tool for a kayaker. Not only does it give you communication with other boats, you can get the weather, you can call out in an emergency. This is a particularly good one because it's waterproof. It means you can wear it, it's not going to cut out on you if you're swimming in the water. So, right now let's see our group down at the Narrows.
So the current's with us on this one, and after that we're going to eddy hop through the next one. Anyone that's unsure of their line, just follow me, okay? Let's go.
Tidal currents can be pretty scary. They're strongest in narrow passages between large bodies of water. You'll need local knowledge or current tables to predict the right time to pass. Clearly, it helps to be going with the flow, but sometimes this is not going to suit your plan.
Okay, before we go into the currents, let's just take a quick look at the low brace turn. I'll show you what that looks like. As your bow crosses the eddy line, and lean into the turn and initiate the turn, and the paddle goes in a low brace turn position. What that means, the non-power face, the back of the paddle, is presented to the water. Once your boat has made the turn, you can then use reverse sweeps to slow yourself down and set your angle back towards shore, and then drive the boat forward towards the eddy line and make another eddy turn to come back into the same back eddy.
The first trick is to learn how to move safely into and out of the current. Here, Graham is entering the current with a pronounced lean of the kayak, taking care that the bottom of his boat is presented to the moving water, and using the sweep and brace strokes to help turn and support him. He then exits the current using the same technique. Ferry gliding is simply crossing the current as ferries do. Graham enters the current at a fine angle, leaning downstream and sweeping powerfully. Once in the fastest part of the current, he brings the kayak upright and prepares to lean the other way as the kayak reacts to the current in the far side eddy. The trickiest parts of most tidal rapids are the whirls and boils that occur where the current reaches deeper water. Eddy hopping is a matter of using the favourable countercurrents close to shore, then sprinting through the crux of faster water between the eddies. If necessary, you may have to ferry glide across to the other side to find slower waters. Of course, the motleys don't bother with all that sissy stuff. Look at this guy swimming for shore. That is really a good option. He doesn't even have his PFD done up properly, and would have been far better to have stayed with his boat and done a re-entry. Every kayak in the group should carry a tow line, either on the boat or on a PFD. Because Tina has one ready to go, she can quickly hook onto the wayward kayak and tow it to its owner. This guy is lucky to have a head to put his hat on. You don't have to be able to roll a kayak, but the roll is the fastest method of recovery from a capsize. There is a paradox here. By the time you have a bomb-proof roll, you'll probably never need to use it except in surf, because your bracing skills will be so strong. Thus, the only people likely to need to roll are the ones who cannot do it. That in itself is a good reason to learn.
The key to learning an effective roll is to develop a method of self-training that you can take home. Here is such a method that I find works for me. I'll first use a simple rock like this or a side of a swimming pool and practice the body movement, which is key to the roll. This is simply rolling the boat using a hip flick and keeping your head more or less static. When you find that is easy to do and natural, try using a paddle float. A paddle float is designed to give buoyancy to the paddle, which is just what you need as a training aid. Clips onto the paddle securely, and now you can use it instead of the rock and become familiar with the action of the paddle. Same technique. Roll the boat around your body using a hip movement. Then we're ready to go a little further. All the way, in fact, using the paddle float. For buoyancy. When you're comfortable with that, you can discard the paddle float and try your first roll just using the paddle. I'll go in on the same side because that's the way I've been practicing. There you go, as simple as that.
Bomb-proof roll or not, you'll need a backup. To wet exit, Tina runs her hand along the cockpit rim to locate the grab loop. Then she slides out. The intuitive method is to simply scramble back aboard. This works if you're agile, practiced, and not too cold. I've seen Tina do this in the surf zone. You should try this method, if only to find out how challenging it can be and how important it is for you to have an alternative. We show it here because it is the basis for the double self-rescue, with the important difference being that you have the assistance of a partner for stability. The paddle float re-entry is the most reliable solo method because it leaves the capsized victim in a more stable position after they are back in the boat. Here we show a ballasted paddle float being set up as an outrigger using the paddle. Most modern kayaks come with deck rigging to accept the paddle, as Tina is doing here. Now she has a stable platform and can use her foot on the paddle shaft to help lift her body out of the water. She keeps her center of gravity low and rotates her body, facing towards the paddle float. Leave the outrigger in place until the boat is pumped dry and the spray skirt reattached. Only bring it in when you're sure you're ready to continue. A recent modification will allow the bag to drain by simply flipping the paddle over. Store the paddle float forward so it is easier to reach if you need it again, and to avoid the destabilizing action of turning around to place it behind your cockpit. When paddling with friends in lightly loaded boats, the T-Rescue is a useful method for getting someone back into their kayak and underway quickly, because it empties water from the boat and of course provides reassurance and assistance. Tina assists in her own rescue by handing me her paddle, then moving to the stern and pressing down on it. I lift. This drains water from the cockpit. The drawback to this rescue is that it requires great strength with heavily loaded boats. The value of adequate buoyancy becomes obvious here, since the more buoyancy there is, the easier the recovery becomes. In this case, I lock onto Tina's boat by gripping the cockpit of her kayak firmly, so we have a stable raft. Tina crawls face down onto the afterdeck, keeping low as she wriggles into the cockpit before turning while facing my boat, which she uses for support. The rescue is not over until she's back in her kayak with a spray deck attached and paddle in her hand. Even then, I must be sure she is ready to continue before we separate. Uh-oh, my turn in the water. This time we're going to demonstrate the seat sling rescue. This rescue works well for getting a heavy or weakened person back into their kayak, and it leaves all hands free of the struggle to maintain a stable raft. Tina stows the paddle. When my kayak has been righted, she carefully opens the edge of her spray skirt and deploys one of the slings she had previously attached to the side of her seat. Or alternatively, she could clip the sling to a special strong point beside the cockpit. She drapes the sling around the cockpit of my kayak. As soon as weight comes on the sling, the two boats are drawn together in a stable, hands-free position. I can stand on the sling and get back into the kayak, no trouble. I still have to keep my center of gravity low, since the stability of the raft decreases as soon as weight comes off the sling. Tina then locks onto my kayak until I've pumped it dry and attached my spray skirt. Even though I'm wearing a dry suit, she still has reason to be concerned, because immersion in cold water is a major problem. So this raises an interesting dilemma for kayakers.
Do we dress for the water or do we dress for the weather? The answer is a resounding, it depends. It depends on your experience level, depends on where you're going, depends on how often you've been out of your kayak and what the risks are of being out of it again. For example, if you're going and surf, you'd better be dressing for the water. If it's a hot day and the water's warm, well, you might consider just dressing for the weather. The clothing you choose is critical in this, and I've got some here that I'll show you. The new generation of breathable dry suits is the ultimate paddling gear. It's usually worn in conjunction with, well, this is a nylon pile undergarment, and that gives you your thermal protection. Neoprene wetsuit, the most common garment worn in conjunction with a good paddling jacket. This is a jacket with wrist seals, neck seal. That's a very good combination. When the weather's warm, you might look at just a light windbreaker and cotton shirt with long sleeves, because in the tropics, it's the sun, not the cold, that's a killer. We have a good hat, essential in the tropics. You can get away with shorts and footwear, yes, footwear. Good footwear protects you from sharp objects like this. Sandals, neoprene booties. You need to protect your feet for when you come ashore and you're never sure for certain where you're going to come ashore.
A good campsite is not just an area with flat ground, water and lots of firewood. For the sea kayaker, it should offer a sheltered landing with the certainty that even with a change of wind, you can get off the beach in the morning.
Right, come on in.
On a calm beach or with a small group, it is a good idea to unload right at the water's edge. Transfer your dry bags into a net bag, especially with doubles, which can carry a colossal amount of gear. Then get someone to help carry it up. This greatly reduces the chances of injuring your back. I always like to put a tarp up first thing upon landing. Doesn't matter if I'm sleeping in a tent or a hammock, it's just nice to have it there for when the rain hits hard. Be sure to haul all the boats clear of the water and tie them up so they won't be taken away by the wind or tide during the night.
Hammocks are an environmentally friendly form of camping, and I find them quite comfortable too.
Cooking on a stove reduces the environmental impact of camping, but if you must have a fire, it's a good idea to set a base of sand down first. This prevents scarring the pebbles on the beach. Also, set it below the high tide level and allow it to burn down to ash. Of course, the Motleys have a high-tech approach to fires. Tina's already planning her next trip and has some advice for Linda.
The most important skill to develop is your power of observation. Knowing where you are and knowing where you want to go.
Observation for a sea kayaker is the same as piloting. For a start, when you leave a bay, take a look back, see what it looks like so you can identify it should you want to return. As you paddle along the shore, watch the movement of trees against other trees or against the mountain tops. This is known as taking ranges. Around the point, you're able to fix your position along the shore by lining up the edge of this island with the edge of this one. That's where you are. Right now, we're going to join Tina and some friends who are preparing to paddle out here and along the exposed west coast.
forecast will be issued at 1030 Pacific Daylight Time. Synopsis: a weakening frontal system through the north coast will push into the BC interior this morning. A ridge of high pressure will rebuild behind the front to lie north to south through Queen Charlotte Sound. A low pressure center to the west of the Bowie region will track northeastward and fill off the northern Alaskan Panhandle late this evening. Over north coast waters, generally light to moderate south to southeast.
Jerry marks significant points, such as the entrance to a sheltered inlet, then measures the position, using the reference at the side of the chart. He then enters the latitude and longitude on the GPS as a precaution against sudden loss of visibility. A kayaker should not rely solely on a GPS, because it's a battery-powered instrument, and besides, Uncle Sam's got his finger on the switch.
Okay, if everyone wants to have a look, this is where we are now, and this is where we want to camp later this afternoon. So right now, we have a rising tide, so we'll be paddling against the tide a little bit. So therefore, we're going to stay close to shore, and we're going to eddy hop, which will minimize the current a little bit. We're going to go around this point, enter into the rock gardens, and this nice sandy beach here is a good place to take a break and have something to eat. And then from there, we'll continue to go through the rock gardens. We'll have a little bit of a northwest wind on our nose, and then we'll go into the bay for our campsite. How does that sound?
Good.
Good.
Sounds good.
Is everybody ready?
Yep.
Yep.
Sunscreen?
You bet.
Water? Good. Well, we'll help each other get into the boats, and then when we're on the water, I'll take the lead, and we'll stick together as a nice tight group, form a pod formation, and we'll paddle along the shore out towards the Pacific Ocean.
Great.
Sounds exciting.
It's going to be exciting.
This is the magnetic compass. It is one of the primary navigation tools for a sea kayaker. I actually prefer to use this kind of compass to the deck-mounted one, though the deck-mounted compass is easy to follow when you're paddling. The best solution is to carry both. When I'm on the water and I want to transfer my course from the chart to the compass, I will usually use my parallel lines. If I'm paddling from this island through the channel, I lay one of the lines along my proposed course. I then move the sheet down till one of the lines runs through the center of the compass rose, which is printed on all nautical charts. I then follow this line and take my reading from the inner circle of the rose, which is the magnetic one. In this case, it is 275 degrees. I then transfer this reading to the compass so the needle matches the red arrow. And then I follow this arrow here, and that is my line of travel. Right now, Tina and her friends have been traveling for about 20 minutes. That's 1 nautical mile at a speed of 3 knots, and that would put them about here. The swells are small today. Because they often originate in storms hundreds of miles out to sea, their presence can have little to do with local weather conditions. Sometimes they come through here at 10 meters, causing huge surf on the beaches and turning the rock gardens into a maelstrom. Of course, in California, rock gardens like these have become an extreme sport. Heavy swells or stormy weather, conditions here would be much the same, so a big part of seamanship for kayakers is knowing when you're ready for the conditions and when you're not.
Wild at 1250 Pacific Daylight Time. West Sea Otter, winds southwest.
On the wild west coast, weather reports are only one of the factors you have to consider. Tina must become her own weather station, picking up clues from clouds, wind, and waves. Sea fog, accompanied by strong wind, is her biggest concern. Even without the fog, wind is a major problem for sea kayakers. Paddling into a 12 to 15 knot wind, as I'm doing here, is about the comfortable limit for most sea kayakers. 20 is pushing it. The appearance of the whitecaps gives you a read on wind strength. Side on, the wind gives a wet ride and affects your course, but does not significantly affect your speed. Going with it is a breeze. When landing from the open ocean, consider this. Headlands cause waves to get bigger, but in the bays their energy is dissipated and they actually get smaller. Tina chooses to land in the corner of the bay, close to the rocks, where the surf is at its smallest.
Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go in first, and then I'll give the okay signal, right, for one person to come in, and then I'll help them land, and then I'll give the okay signal for the next person.
Tina has made many surf landings, but she took her first lessons from Dan.
Let's say it's the end of the day and you want to come back in and land on the beach. It's really important that you do not allow a loaded sea kayak to start surfing on a wave because it'll broach out of control. You can high brace and side surf it out, but you'd rather come in under control. The way you do that is you're pointing towards the beach, you're paddling towards the beach, and you're watching behind you to see the next wave approaching. Keep paddling forward, watch that wave approach. As the wave approaches, paddle backwards. You're not paddling backwards to move the boat backwards, you're simply doing some braking strokes to kill your forward speed. If you have no forward speed when the wave picks you up like this, you will not begin to slide and surf towards the beach. Instead, the wave will pass under you, and then as soon as the crest goes under your hips, the bow will come up, and then you paddle forward on the back of the wave. Try to paddle forward and ride in on the back of the wave. Next wave, you're paddling forward. The next wave approaches from behind. Back up the wave. As it passes under you, paddle hard forwards and try to catch a ride on the back of the wave. The next thing we're going to work on is actually punching out through the surf. So this is a situation where you're camping on a beach, you want to go touring, and you have to get out through the waves. It's a very simple technique. It's called PLH, paddle like hell. You just get in the boat and go. Paddle as hard as you can.
Tina gives her signal, and then the motleys descend upon her. Securing a source of clean water is a priority as soon as you've landed. Now, you can use a gravity filtration system such as this, or boil the water, or use purification tablets, or you may be lucky and find a safe stream. A comfortable campsite is a treat. Now, you often have to choose between camping on an open beach, which is environmentally preferable, but leaves you exposed to the wind, or in the protection of the trees. Seamanship skills do not stop when you come ashore. Make sure everything is secured. Boats should be tied down properly, and there should be nothing lying around that can be blown away if the wind came up during the night. Our message in this video started with mastering the 3 R's of sea kayaking and included a glimpse of oceanography, navigation, and weather that forms the substance of the sport. It may well have given rise to more questions than answers. Future videos will concentrate on these skills and offer guidance on ways to develop the attitudes and judgment needed for safe and enjoyable kayaking. Stay with us and we'll show you how.